Welcome back to some new malicious compliance stories, where people complied to the letter, but not the spirit of our request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Replacement Mouse. I worked for a company selling electrical control gear. A specialist sales rep ran to the managing director to say his mouse was malfunctioning intermittently, so he needs a replacement. The director says, "When it stops working completely, let me know and we'll replace it." To give some context, we are talking about a $15 to $35 item. This guy generates over $1 million in sales annually. The sales rep looks the director dead in the eye, as if to say, well, if that's how you want to play it. He doesn't miss a beat and hurls the mouse at the hard floor violently, so it disintegrates spectacularly. Yeah, it stopped working completely. I'll need a new mouse. The boss was shocked. Then, with a look of resignation, he said, "I did that to myself." The next story is called Another 20. The early days of the race management industry were full of stupid stuff, but my first experience of jerk management was when my boss came up to me on the Friday afternoon before my fortnight of booked holiday time and said, "How many 205 late drums of recyclable solvent do you have ready to go today?" I did a quick stock check and said 68. That is totally unacceptable. To make it viable to send drums to the recycling facility, we need a full load of 88 drums. You either find me another 20 drums quickly, or you're not going anywhere this evening. I was fed up with this sort of thing, getting sprung on a Friday, but this time I wasn't in the mood. So I quickly ran through all our stock and saw there was absolutely nothing else to send that was viable. Time was ticking, so I got 5 empty pallets, 20 new empty drums, and proceeded to bend them in place, label them for transport, and then put them with the other drums ready to go. My boss saw me at the clocking out machine and said, "I hope you found me those drums for that load." I said, "Sure did. It was no big thing," and left with him congratulating me on a job well done when under pressure. On my return from holiday, he asked me why the load was very light at the recycling center Raid Bridge, and I just said that it must have been all the neat solvent I used to create the load. The third story is called Smarter, Not Harder. In one of my roles, as part of a small team, we had a change in manager. The new chap was very technical, very analytical, and absolutely set high expectations. He worked as hard as anyone, but was an inexperienced manager. Over the year, I worked my tail off. I put hours into the hiring process, pre-screen calls, code analysis, interviews, helping colleagues experienced and new. As the team grew and the complexity of the codebase grew, I acted as a key problem solver, breaking the back of design bottlenecks and other issues. I did this on top of my normal deliverables on the team. I knocked it out of the park. Imagine my surprise at the end of the year to discover my new boss delivered a review that said I met expectations. I found it unbelievable that having delivered a year like that, I was only being considered a mediocre employee and could expect to be compensated accordingly. I created quite a lot of fuss. Even when I understood the why, limited exceeds could be given out, the how, someone else on the team had been rated ahead of me, and the politics, I was nonplussed. So I learned how my boss measured performance, and I made sure from then on to deliver according to those metrics. I also cut back materially on my other contributions to the team, actually taking back nearly 400 hours of time from the office, incidentally setting up a decent work-life balance. I worked for this manager for another couple of years before transferring out. I was always his pick for exceeds, and I always had a great work-life balance. The next story is called My Property, right? We live in the older part of a subdivision, so we have a larger than average lot, over an acre. Our entire backyard is fenced in, but not our front. Our driveway is bordered on one side by bushes, but our property line actually exceeds about 10 feet past the bushes onto our neighbor's side. Our neighbor has a weird habit of always hiring the same lawn service as we do. So it's always the same person cutting both lawns, which means no one has ever needed to really specify where the property line is. Well, the neighbor stiffed the lawn guy 2 weeks in a row, so he stopped cutting his grass. The lawn guy was cutting our grass 2 days ago, and the neighbor came out and confronted him about needing to cut all the way to our property line on the other side of the bushes. We have never mentioned it before because he had been cutting both lawns, so it was a non-issue. This neighbor is kind of a jerk, and it really rubbed me the wrong way that he confronted our lawn guy instead of speaking to us directly. So I decided to be petty just for pettiness sake. I went to the dollar store and bought $40 worth of the tackiest lawn and garden decorations I could find. It's my property, right? Since I can't see that part of my property because of the bushes, it is just annoying the heck out of the neighbor. And these are people who very much care about the aesthetics of their home. The last story is called Malicious Compliance Dog. Somewhere around 2007, I was working as a drugstore manager. I was running the entire front store and a pharmacy. The pay was excellent for someone who was in their early to mid-20s, but the job was also soul-crushing in some stupid ways. A rule came down that cashiers can no longer have drinks at the register. They can drink on their lunch breaks and otherwise shouldn't need water. At the same time, they dialed back the AC, so the store was constantly uncomfortably warm, but not technically dangerous. I had some of the best staff. One lady was roughly 65 and came to me to let me know she was on medicine that gave her a dry mouth. So she needs me to know if I took her water away, she would really have a hard time being able to talk to customers. She almost developed a lisp when she couldn't have her water. I told her, no worries, have your water. I'll deal with my boss when he sees you someday. Because he was running 40 stores and mine was generally not a problem store, he only came by every 60 days or so. Eventually he does ring in and asks her about her water. She says I have a medical condition and I told her it was fine. I also told him I had approved the water. He pulls me into the office to let me know that for her to have that water, she needs a doctor's note. If he sees her with it again, without a note, we both get written warnings. He explains this is because not following the company rule can't be a decision made by me. I am flabbergasted. I am just the manager in charge of the store. This company literally made me do drills on how to deal with extreme things, but I can't approve a bottle of water. It must be an exception deemed necessary for medical needs. I explain this is stupid. He actually agrees, but says he's also following orders from above. I pull my cashier aside and tell her what's up. I said I'm really sorry, but can she please just get her doctor to fax a stupid note over so we can cover us? She got a little gleam in her eye, and I was excited to see what it meant. On her next shift, she rolls in and says you are going to love this. She hands me about 100 copies of a letter that says something along the lines of, I do solemnly state that cashier is medically a human being and requires water in regular intervals while working and not solely during breaks. This was a massive waste of my time, and your company should be ashamed of yourself. I will be recommending your competitor as much as humanly possible to my patients who fill prescriptions in this town for the rest of my natural life. Signed, the dog. The next 40 were identical letters, each with a different staff member listed, as my genius cashier has snagged an old schedule with first names and last initials. The rest had a blank space for me to fill in new hire names, so our staff could all have drinks on the sales floor. My boss wasn't even mad. None of the higher-ups above him ever mentioned it on a store walk, so I assume it was covered in a meeting of people higher up than me. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.